It's exciting that we have met once again on this channel, Biblical Research and Innovation Network for Africa, Brain for Africa or BrainFA. One of the challenges that we face as a church is misinterpretation and misapplication of biblical texts. More often than not, we find pastors and church leaders and other Christians who misquote texts and apply them incorrectly. As my contribution to solving this problem, I'll be coming to you in a series of videos where I will point out how certain texts have been misinterpreted and misapplied, and share with you how I think they should be interpreted and applied correctly to our context. In this video, I'm sharing with you my thoughts on Job chapter 41, verse 11. And I want to begin by quoting what the text says in the ESV. I quote, "Who has first given to me that I should repay? Whatever is under the whole heaven is mine." Unquote. Does God promise to repay us when we give in support of his work according to this text? In this video, I argue that Job chapter 41 verse 11 is not a promise that God will repay people for their donation. It is a claim by God that he owes no one anything because he owns everything. In other words, everything belongs to God, and for that matter, God does not have to pay or repay anybody for giving in support of his work. How has this text been misinterpreted and misquoted? The text is often quoted in the context of fundraising activities with emphasis on the first part, which says, "Who has first given to me that I should repay him?" The common interpretation is that God has promised in this text that he will repay whoever gives in support of his work. One may hear a pastor say, "The Lord says in Job chapter 41 verse 11 that who has given me something that I did not repay? Come and give bountifully to the Lord, and he will honor his promise by giving to you abundantly." This means that God is obliged to repay those who give in support of his work. For me, this is an injection of the transactional approach to traditional religion into Christianity. In traditional religion, people take sacrifices to their deities and tell their deities that I'm giving you ABC items, or I'm making this and this sacrifice, and you also need to do ABC for me. There is an injection of this aspect of African traditional religion into Christianity, and that's exactly what is happening in this kind of interpretation of the text that we are talking about. In many societies, worshippers make sacrifices to their gods to entice them, and so somebody moving from African traditional religion into Christianity might carry that idea along and bring it. When such practices are brought into Christianity, one may think that giving to God makes God have the obligation to give back to the person. Now, having talked about how it has been misquoted and misinterpreted, let us now look at how the text should be interpreted. The whole of Job chapter 41 is about God's sovereignty, his might, demonstrated through the creation of Leviathan, which is a very powerful animal. We find this in the first 10 verses of Job chapter 41. God is not promising that when we give to him, he will repay us. Rather, he is saying that there is no one who was first to give him something. In other words, it is God who has first given to us. And so whatever we have and we give in return came from God and did not come from us. That is to make the point that there is nothing that ultimately belongs to anybody. Whatever anybody has belongs to God. So if you take what belongs to God, which he has given to you as a steward, if you take part of it and give back to God, does it put some obligation on him for him to give you? No. Because what you have, even including your very life, belongs to God, and it was given to you by God. So God is not obliged to give to anybody, and he is not actually even promising that he will give to anybody who gives to him. I'm talking about this text. That promise may be found in other texts, but for this particular text, God is not promising that when you give, he will repay. He is saying that all that is in the world, including everything, even your very life, came from him. And so he owes no one anything when somebody gives in support of his work. To make the meaning come out clearer, I will read the full verse in the following versions. I'm reading from the NASB. Who has been first to give to me, that I should repay him? Whatever is under the entire heaven is mine. Now, CEV. I am in command of the world and in debt to no one. Another version, NLT. Who has given me anything that I need to pay back? Everything under the heaven is mine. The bottom line, therefore, is that you and I have people owing us, but the sovereign God owns everything and so owes no one anything. Now, suggestion for proper use. In my view, we must accept that God is not under any obligation to give anyone for supporting his work. The reason is simply that everything belongs to God himself. And we can find this from Hosea chapter 2 verse 8. Everything under the heavens, everything in the universe belongs to God. Again, the text should encourage Christians to willingly and wholeheartedly do all they can in support of God's work in appreciation of what God has already done in their lives. Then again, giving in support of God's work must not only be in monetary terms. We must support God with all resources available to us. To conclude, in order to understand this text and other texts very well, there is the need, among other things, to read the context within which the text appears. It is important for us not to take text out of context. And I believe that if we read our text in context, reading from the top, then to the point where we have our text, and going down, alongside reading or studying the historical, cultural context within which the text was produced, we will be able to do a better job when it comes to biblical interpretation and application. God richly bless you for watching this video.